Welcome, everybody. I'm Carlo Zarillo. I'm chair of the Tri-City Chamber of Commerce. And I'm really short, especially when I'm standing in front of Craig Moore. I'm going to just take a few minutes to kick us off, get us started, and then I'll start calling people up who are actually going to run the day. So I'll first start off by saying Mike Hind couldn't be here today, and obviously my phone has been buzzing. It's in my back pocket, so my butt's been rumbling the last 30 minutes. He's saying, don't forget this and don't forget that. So on behalf of Mike Hind, I do want to welcome everybody, and we wish him a great day today because he's out of the office. So I'd like to introduce the chamber staff. Are the chamber staff all here? I'll ask you to stand up. So Stephanie Ma, are you here? Stephanie Ma. Okay. Stephanie Rennie, stand up. Wendy, please stand up. Camelia Maxim is in the lobby. And Judith, is Judith in here? All right. The reason I wanted them to stand up, and they actually sat down, and the other two aren't here, but that's all right. So much for the script. I want to thank them because this year, I'd love to take credit myself. I mean, as chair of the chamber, you always want to do a victory lap on your year. But this year has been, we're in September, so I don't want to jinx it. But this year has been the best year in the chamber's history up until September based on all the KPIs that we follow. So whether it's membership, whether it's revenue, whether it's event attendance, like this event, one of our most prestigious events is this one, and we are sold out, and we had a waiting list that could have filled this place almost twice over. So I want to give all the credit to staff. They have done an amazing job this year in taking this chamber to new heights. So thanks to the staff. I'd like to invite up our first co-presenting sponsor, Victor Pang, with the Port of Vancouver.
Thank you, Carlo, and good evening, everybody. My name is Victor Pang. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. And thank you for having me today here. We are very delighted, very excited to be a sponsor of this evening's barbecue and event. And it's a really exciting time to be living and working in the Tri-Cities. My family has recently moved to Burnaby, and because of that, we've been having a lot more opportunities to be spending time in this area. And I've noticed many, many exciting changes in the community over the past few years. Of course, there's the opening of the Evergreen Line stations. There's the growth of many, many local businesses and residential developments. But the Port of Vancouver, we're also experiencing a lot of growth. And this is evident here in Port Moody with the recent development of one of our key marine terminals, the Pacific Coast Terminals. You might know that they recently opened a state-of-the-art potash handling and storage facility. And this is a $200 million project that creates jobs and economic activities in the local communities, as well as enabling Canada as a trading nation to deliver higher volumes of potash exports to international markets. And as you know, potash is a very important and key strategic export for the country. It's thanks to the great municipal leaders like our mayors here today who work so well together that your communities have flourished. And I have to say that having all four of them sitting here, getting all ready to answer any questions that you're going to throw at them, and it really demonstrates their dedication to the communities. And I know all of you are keen to get to the Q&A, so I'll make my remarks rather brief. The Port Authority, on behalf of Port of Vancouver, we are pleased to be a sponsor tonight, and we're really proud to be supporting the local businesses and the communities in different ways. This includes the approximately $14,000 we've contributed to different Tri-Cities events and activities last year. It includes the 1,700 jobs that we helped generate in the community, and 1,700 jobs represent roughly about 10% of a job category we call trades, transport, and equipment operator. It also includes us working closely with the municipalities to secure federal funding on some key infrastructure projects to improve the local traffic conditions in the Tri-Cities. But the port is also connected to your businesses in some less obvious, but just as impactful ways. So as Canada's largest port and gateway to overseas markets, and in particular in Asia, the Port of Vancouver supports local exports and keeps the store shelves full with imported products. So for example, I'm sure the barbecue that cooks the meal tonight probably came from China, and the many vehicles that you drove to the event probably came through the port from some container ships. And then there are the clothes that you're wearing, and then there's the mobile phones in your pockets. Yes, the mobile phones. We cannot live without the mobile phones. And so most of us don't really think about it, but really a lot of our daily lives really are connected to the port. So on that, I just want to say on behalf of the Port of Vancouver, thank you for hosting us tonight, and thank you all of you for joining this event. And I hope you enjoy a very fruitful evening and a great Q&A and a wonderful dinner. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. I'd like to invite our second co-presenting sponsor up, Kevin, I'm going to butcher this last name, sorry, Luzignan. All right, Kevin Luzignan, Employment Roundtable of the Tri-Cities. All right, was that not bad?
That was excellent.
All right.
That was very good, better than most.
Better than most, but not.
I get mine butchered every other.
Oh, serious, yeah. Well, thank you to the mayors of the Tri-Cities, your respective members of council and staff, as well as thanks to the Tri-Cities Board of Directors and its members for hosting this event. My name is Kevin Luzignan. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Ventures Society, and Community Ventures belongs to the Employment Roundtable, and you'll see all the logos over there on our banner stand of all the different partners that we have that come together to try and advance inclusive employment. We're working toward a future where paid employment for people with disabilities is a regular and routine occurrence. And I have to say that at this present time, that's not really the case. And we feel that much could be done, and it could be a lot different. So here's our pitch. We think there are many benefits when people are included in our workplaces, and they're able to contribute to our economic system as workers, as consumers, and as taxpayers. And the benefits for employers are, and we know this to be true, are loyal employees that are better rated in terms of attendance, in terms of safety, and reduced staff turnover. Your customers will view your business more favorably than your competitors if you're an inclusive employer. And really, the benefit for society is that if people are given a chance to contribute rather than receive, then everybody wins. So the Employment Roundtable has co-sponsored the Mayor's Barbecue because we want to raise awareness with you, the business community. And we want to recognize also employers who value diversity and are intentional about creating that in their workplaces. And so if you want to find out more about that, just contact any one of us or email us, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. Now, as you might remember, if you were here last year, we presented the Inclusive Employer Award to the City of Port Moody, but this year we're awarding the Inclusive Employer Award to the Tri-Cities branches of Van City. We want to acknowledge their leadership and their work on diversity and employment, or inclusive employment. And currently, there are two branches in the Tri-Cities who are active inclusive employers, and another branch in the Tri-Cities that is in the works of hiring another person. And so we think that's amazing work that they've done. Van City's work on diversity and inclusion is intentional. It's part of what they do. It is organizational wide, and it's rooted in their values. And so we very much appreciate the efforts that Van City has made, and you very much deserve this award. And so I'd like to ask Van City staff, Jennifer Taylor, Susan Devlin, and Adam Jameson to come up and receive their awards. Adam. Thank you. And there you go. Thank you. And now Jennifer would like to say a few words on behalf of Van City.
Thank you. It's truly humbling to be up here and receiving this. And as a financial cooperative, Van City is committed to helping build healthier communities. And as Kevin mentioned, one of the ways we do that is through inclusive hiring. And we've been able to do that to great success. And I would most earnestly encourage all of you to consider that yourselves for your own businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
On behalf of Van City, I shared an excellent job bringing my coworkers for the meeting in the community branch impact room, and at 9:30 I opened the doors for our customers. And when I'm opening the doors for the customers, I greet the customers saying, "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Van City, and how you guys doing today?"
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so just we're really close to getting started. You guys must, I know this happens all the time. You must feel like fish in a bowl or penguins at a zoo. I'd like to thank our sponsors for today. Our barbecue sponsor, Earl's Pork Coquitlam. Yeah, one clap. Thank you. Appetizers, Rocco's Deli. Beverage, Yellow Dog Brewery. Dessert, the Clever Cupcakes. The Clever Cupcakes. Clever. Sorry about that. Clever. It's going to be a hatchet job today. Photographer, Butter Studios. Not Better Studios, Butter Studios. Media, Tri-City News. Signs, Fast Signs. Decor, Coquitlam Florist. Insurance, Martin Insurance. All right. So I will now invite up our moderator for the day, Diane Stronberg of the Tri-City News. Welcome, Diane.
Oops. Uh-oh. There goes page one. Oh, there's so many papers up here. I always wanted to do that. Okay, so that's a signal we're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to try and challenge these mayors and get them to answer some tough questions. Before we get started, I want to explain a little bit about how tonight will work. We'll have an opening question to start the discussion off, and the mayors will get to answer. Then we'll move to an open floor session where you guys get to ask the tough questions. Everyone is welcome to ask these questions. You can ask the mayors individually or as a group. And just a reminder, we're going to be using Slido. So go on your devices, type it in, and hashtag TCC Mayors. Ask your questions, or if you don't want to ask, you can vote. And the top questions are the questions that are going to be asked. So we're going to try and get through this pretty quickly because I know everybody's anxious to go out there and get something to eat. But before we do, I just want to say that there's going to be a sort of a 10-minute warning period. That's when we're going to wrap up our questions. And before we move on, I'd like to introduce our engagement sponsor, and that is Gord Schoberg from Fortis, BC.
Well, thank you, Diane. I'm not sure what an engagement sponsor is, but wouldn't things go a lot quicker without sponsors? Just kidding. It wouldn't happen at all. Welcome to your worships and everyone to this year's barbecue, and thank you, Tri-Cities Chamber, for once again bringing together this wonderful event. It's my absolute pleasure to be here with you on this beautiful summer evening. Just a quick word about Fortis, BC. We provide natural gas, electricity, propane, and thermal energy solutions to 1.1 million customers in British Columbia, and we're proud to serve 135 communities. We've got more than 2,200 employees, many of whom live right here in the Tri-Cities. And we contribute over $52 million per year in the tax coffers to the 3 municipalities in the Tri-Cities. You're welcome. I know it's not enough. Since 2014, our major projects, including the current Surrey to Coquitlam natural gas line upgrade project, of which you may have seen around Mundy Park and Mariner Way. Yes, we still got 2 lanes closed down. We're sorry. We're going to get them opened as soon as we can, Mayor. We've generated more than $130 million of spending and growing with Lower Mainland businesses and vendors. In fact, the upgrade project alone has utilized the services of 120 local businesses. I'd like to take this opportunity to convey our sincere thanks to the residents and businesses impacted by the upgrade project for their patience, understanding, and support throughout the recent months. It's truly appreciated. Now I'd like to welcome our mayors to the stage. Just dig a little deeper here. Some factoids that you never knew, maybe didn't want to know. Mayor Mike Clay of Port Moody, a lifelong Port Moody resident. He has a background in computer programming, but has always dreamed of being a skateboard champion. You didn't know that, did you?
I like it.
Mayor John McEwen of Anmore. He's been a resident there for 10 years. Has a background in entrepreneurship. I think we all knew that. But secretly longed to be one of the Bee Gees.
The tall Bee Gee. The tallest Bee Gee.
Some folks of my vintage will get that joke. Mayor Greg Moore doesn't get off that easily, of Port Coquitlam. Has lived in Port Coquitlam his whole life. We all know that Mayor Moore loves to ride his bike, but he would trade that for the superpower of flying any day. Mayor Richard Stewart of Coquitlam has been a Coquitlam resident for his whole life. As a child, Mayor Stewart wanted to be a scientist, but instead gained background in building technology and codes and government relations. Let's give them all a warm welcome. Thank you very much, Diane.
Okay, well, I guess it's time to get started. All right, our first question coming up on Slido, I think you can see it, is what would you identify as the single most significant challenge to your city, and what is your solution to deal with it? Mayor Clay, we're going to start with you and move in this direction.
Well, does this work? Okay, there we go. That's a tough one. I think in Port Moody, it's probably just dealing with growth and change. And with that, there's things that come with that, like transportation issues and congestion. But I think, we're growing very rapidly. We were the fastest growing city in BC for a number of years. And then we stopped, and now we've got a lot of pressure to resume sort of that growth along with the rest of the regional district. And I think, what you do to deal with that is to plan properly for it, to work with your neighbors, and to make sure that you're doing things that make sense across the region. And I think we've got a lot of regional initiatives right now that Greg's leading that are really helping us move forward, and Port Moody is a part of that. We've got a far bigger part of that than we used to. And I think that, addressing those issues, the transportation, the congestion one is the one that the residents are probably complaining the most about. And I think that, getting people onto transit, getting the regional networks working better is what we're already working on and where we're seeing a lot of progress. But we have to keep with it, and we have to keep communicating with people what we're doing.
All right. Next.
Our biggest challenge right now is to make a complete community. Our predecessor zoned a lot of the land up in Anmore as 1 acre, so we're finding an influx of houses that are being built, and it's losing the community feel. So as a council, we're going to have to certainly look at diversified the housing. I would say in years past it would have been financial sustainability, but we've seemed to have certainly gotten ahead of that curve. in the past. So anyway, that's our biggest challenge, is diversified communities.
All right, there seems to be a trick question added in here. But we're going to go on to Mayor Stewart and let him answer the challenge that his city is facing.
Well, I think it's the same challenge that the region is facing. Probably our biggest one is housing. We have a tremendous, we're a popular place. We are one of the best places to live, and Canada will continue to absorb about 250,000 people a year, and many of them will choose Metro Vancouver. And if we want our kids to be able to stay in this community, we have to find housing solutions that are going to be pressured by the fact that we don't have any more land. We've drawn a hard line around development. As a region, we've established an urban containment boundary, and that means that almost all of the development, all of the new housing and new jobs, for that matter, in the next 25 years, will be pretty much on rebuilding on the existing footprints within the existing developed areas. And that's a major challenge for Coquitlam, of course, and Port Moody as well. We've just got a new SkyTrain line, so that's more pressure to make certain that we're using the SkyTrain stations to their full capacity.
We're going to be touching on the Evergreen line, but maybe your solutions to this housing challenge.
You asked what was the biggest challenge.
Yeah, and the solution.
Okay, a solution. We simply need more housing. There's no question that we have to find more creative ways and more choices. We actually have a program at City Hall called Housing Choices, and it's about trying to create unique housing forms, or not unique because they're done in lots of other places, but bring them to Metro Vancouver and trying to utilize less land per unit. Because we don't want to sprawl. We want to make sure that we maintain the livability of the region, and that means creating innovative housing forms on existing footprints.
All right, and Greg, what's your suggestion?
I think our council, we spend a lot of time on affordability, whether it's property taxes and how that affects residents and businesses, and weighing that out to the services that we want to deliver, and then carrying that over to the affordability of housing. It's one thing to build housing, but it's another thing to build affordable housing, and it's another thing to ensure that you're getting out of the way of business to allow business to flourish so they can hire more people at good paying jobs so they can afford to live here. Because, in Metro Vancouver, we have one of the largest affordability gaps in North America. We have the third lowest GDP per capita in North America. So we got lots of jobs. Unemployment is low, but we got lots of low-paying jobs, and we collectively have to figure out how to reduce the cost of living here, but we also have to figure out how we create more good quality employment opportunities.
Right, okay. Well, that's dancing around the issue a bit, but, it was a good start.
Well, you're in a suit. You might as well dance.
You could be at the golf course, I guess.
We're now gonna talk a little bit about business, since we've got a lot of business people here. What type of businesses would you like to see set up shop in your city, and how would you like to attract them, or what would you do to attract them? And I think we're going to go in this direction, and Mayor Moore, you get another.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we want to attract good quality employment in our community. We have specifically, it would have been easy for us to take the whole Dominion Triangle and make it into commercial and residential, but we allowed some of that to go in because it spurred the ability for us to have industrial lands there. And we have a little bit of a building boom on a micro scale in the Dominion Triangle around industrial lands. The other thing that we did as a city, we did led by Councillor Forrest, was a task force on business development opportunities. And one of the things that we decided to do, or one of the recommendations that we implemented, was, one, how can we procure more business from our Port Coquitlam businesses? So now what we do is any sort of RFP that we put out to procure business, we not only put it on BC Bid, but most big Port Coquitlam businesses, unless you're big, go on to BC Bid. We go to our business license database and we find everybody that does roofing, and we send the RFP to them as well so that they can bid on it. We also got rid of a whole bunch of red tape with zoning and building permits and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So we did a lot of different things. We created a job board. So one of the #1 places that most people go when they visit a city website or a government website, or probably some of your business websites, is the career section. So we used to post just our jobs. Right now, if you have a business license in Port Coquitlam, you can post your jobs as well, because we think we'll create a more livable community if you can live and work in the same community. It's good for business because you probably will reduce your churn rate of your employees, and so it creates that overall mix of what's going on. So to be direct and answer your question, those are the things that we've done to create a better business community.
Okay, now, Mayor Richard Stewart, you need to come up with some of your ideas about how you're going to attract business, and what kind of businesses would you like to attract?
Well, actually, I want to discuss one of the initiatives that Greg had put in at Metro Vancouver, because it really is how do you do it regionally? Because, I mean, Coquitlam shouldn't be trying to attract businesses from Port Coquitlam or vice versa. We should be working as a region a little bit better. And as a result, a program at Metro called Regional Prosperity aims to get all the municipalities working together at trying to identify and really seek out better jobs and more employment and more manufacturing and essentially.
Is it manufacturing jobs we're looking to get, or
well, some of it's manufacturing.
We have a
but
lot of service and
there's a lot of service now. Some of it's manufacturing. Some of it's the innovation, the technology. I mean, industrial is not going to look like industrial did in the past. It won't be smokestack industrial. It will be a different kind. But we really have to find our niche as a region. In Coquitlam, one of the largest employers in Coquitlam is actually the film industry, where the film industry comes into Riverview right now, Deadpool 2, and there's a half dozen productions going on at Riverview right now. And you can't imagine the swarm of really skilled people that are doing work in the film industry in our community. So it really is about, I think, working with other municipalities and trying to identify ways that we cut some red tape. We did those initiatives as well. We have to make it so that municipalities are fertile ground for job creation, and that we get out of the way, as Greg mentioned earlier, get out of the way of the creation of jobs in our community.
Okay, thank you. And John?
We're predominantly.
They just want a job there.
So, but it gets back to the livable communities. We have an area of land that we've specified as a special area, which the Ioko lands, which is in partnership with Port Moody, and we're hoping the proponent comes forward with something that we can do that. Whether we aren't sure what it could be. There's limited with access in regards to transit and that, but we're hoping in the coming years that they're going to come forward with something that'll be able to broaden our tax base and diversify it from just residential, and people will be able to live and work and make a complete community. So.
Okay. And Mike Glay.
We're just going to poach everybody from Port Coquitlam. You know, we've made no secret about it. What we want to attract in Port Moody is innovative, high-tech, and education-based institutions and companies. We think that's a good fit, you know, with respect to any chamber member who's in a larger company. We're known for being smaller, locally based companies in Port Moody. We don't have big box here. So we're really looking for people that are innovative, really pushing the envelope on moving forward that conversion from heavy industry. As Richard just said, you know, the new industry is going to be clean, innovative tech. So, you know, we're fibering up the community. We're making sure that our land use and our zoning and our building is what's going to attract people to want to be here. And, you know, we have a couple of good employers that in the city that have said, you know, the greatest thing about being Port Moody is I can take my staff and go wakeboarding at lunch. So that goes back to the regional thing as well. I think if we look around the region and we know a certain company wants to locate in Greater Vancouver, what suits them the best? And we need to be able to say at times that's not Port Moody's gig, or that fits Port Moody perfectly. And that's where working together, I think we grow as a region and we bring great jobs here.
And you know what, can I just pick up on that, because Richard and Mike just mentioned it. You know, so we are working on this initiative at Metro Vancouver, and these guys are a part of it, called the Regional Prosperity Initiative. By the way, we're doing a big launch next Friday, and everybody wants to sign up. Just go to Metro Vancouver's website to be there. But here's a great example that's happening right now. Amazon announced today that they want to locate a second head office, right? It's going to come with thousands and thousands of high-paying jobs. It's not going to be just in the CBD. They said that they need to have multiple locations in a city. The City of Vancouver Economic Development Commission looks like they're going to take that on as a lead. But why wouldn't we take it on as a region? Why wouldn't the City of Port Coquitlam or any of us, well, we'll phone them up and say, what can we do to help you win that bid? But it's very informal, and there's lots of Amazons out there that we don't have a coordinated approach in the region to go get that foreign direct investment. Because if a job happens in Coquitlam, or a business opens up in Coquitlam, you can guarantee there's a certain percentage of the folks that live in Poco, and that's good for us. And so we got to figure that out as a region of how we're going to go attract those foreign. Toronto's doing it, Edmonton. Every other city in Canada, by the way, has a regional approach to foreign direct investment and economic development.
Would you
and
think of forming something like a joint
we're forming
committee?
it. That's the Regional Prosperity Initiative. Next Friday, we're going to launch what we think it's going to be like. We're the only jurisdiction in Canada that doesn't get federal economic development money and provincial economic development money because there's no entity in Metro Vancouver to give it to.
All right. The Chamber of Commerce is fighting against this new federal Liberals tax increase to small business. What, if anything, can the cities do to help fight this proposal? Now, this is assuming that you are against the proposal. You may have your own ideas. Want to start with Mike Lay?
I think you're on dangerous ground when you say, what can a city do to fight your federal government? That's not our role and not what we should be doing. We can support our chamber, we can support our local businesses, we can support good policy, even just putting the words, the federal Liberals. This is the federal government. And, they're going to do things that affect us at times, and we have organizations like FCM and UBCM where we can stand up for good policy, but, going to look for a fight with the federal government doesn't play out well for anybody. But I think for us, it's supporting, and this in Port Moody, where a lot of our businesses are small, locally owned businesses, this is a bit of a jab at entrepreneurship, and it's hitting people that, the income transferring and income splitting and stuff is really what hits small business, where you're sole proprietor type business, and it seems on the surface to be a little bit unfair. And I think we need to help, how we can to support the chamber and support the small businesses in the area. But, it's usually better for us if we're tucking in behind a group like the chamber than taking on a fight with the federal government, because that doesn't serve us very well.
Does anybody else want to weigh in on this question? Okay, well, I think we summed that one up. All right, the next question. The exciting when we had the Evergreen line show up, but there probably has been some challenges as well as some benefits. I'd like to start with Richard Stewart on this question. What are some of the challenges and the benefits of this rapid transit?
Okay, the challenges, the main complaint, it's noisy.
Yes.
We actually ramped up a whole RCMP crime initiative to make certain that we didn't end up with some of the spillover effects that other communities have faced or perceived when SkyTrain arrived. And for the most part, we haven't. We haven't seen that influx because of a program called UCREW. It's a Uniform Crime Reduction Unit that's able to target those areas. So those were on the challenge side. Incidentally, rapid transit Evergreen Line has actually been grinding their rails and trying to polish the rails and hopefully get it right. I was on the line twice today, and it seemed a whole lot quieter through the tunnel. On the plus side, and it's also a challenge, is that you really need to put density around stations, and that means an incredible amount of development that goes on. We've got the Burquitlam station, of course, which is the land around it is being completely transformed. We just adopted the Burquitlam Lougheed neighborhood plan, which includes some tremendous density as well as new parks and some commercial facilities, and what will be a beautiful neighborhood, but it will create a lot of construction fatigue in those neighborhoods as building after building is being built, and that will happen at all 4 of the Coquitlam, well 5 if you count Lougheed Town Center station, and those are challenges that residents have to face. But I'll tell you, to be able to step out of my office and be at New Westminster City Hall or at Metro Vancouver or downtown Vancouver, doing work on my laptop, it's a whole lot. It's a game changer for so many of our commuters.
Well, some people have been suggesting that the Evergreen Line is making places like Rocky Point Park a little bit too popular. I wonder if Mayor Calais would like to talk about the challenges and the benefits of the Evergreen Line.
Yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm wondering how candid we're going to be about our answers here.
Be very candid.
Well, we'll start with, a bit of reality, and this is what Richard said. We need to be willing to step up and accept this benefit in our city. A park may get more crowded, but we have, and I don't know if anybody knows these numbers, but we have the second lowest performing SkyTrain station in the Lower Mainland at Moody Centre. The area that's ripe for redevelopment, that should have a ton of density dumped on it. It's close to the park. It's a good place. It's close to schools. It's close to everything. And we need to get brave, and we need to make some decisions about how we're going to accept this gift, this $1.4 billion gift that connects our residents around the Lower Mainland. And if our parks get busier, they get busier, and we need to build some new parks, and we need to expand our parks, and we need to do that. But you know, that's the you know, the monologue that, or the dialogue that I don't like is, you know, we're so successful, we should all cocoon ourselves and go cry in a corner. Rocky Point Park is a great place. Brewers Row is a great place. We've got a great city, and people are coming here in droves. We're in the LA Times the other day about, you know, what, and riding in here on the SkyTrain. Monday night, I came home after a day out. I went home, I had a shower, and I texted a friend. I said, "What are you doing?" They said, "We're going to Cardero's for dinner." I jumped on the train. I was having dinner at Cardero's in an hour. And I came back, and what a great night, right? So that's the gift that we've been given. And what the challenge is, how we step up, as Richard said. How do we step up and deal with that and accept that, and not think for 1 second that building 3-story condos around a train station is the right thing to do. You know, we need to get density on those stations that allows young people to live here, that allows seniors to live here, that has rental housing, and that's the opportunities it gives. We have developers now want to build rental housing in the Tri-Cities for the first time in 35 years. And look at Coquitlam. Go up to Coquitlam and look at the success that they've had up there. And I've got nothing. I've got abandoned, you know, derelict warehouses and machine shops down there sitting while people speculate, and they just want to get on with it. So as a city, we need to get on with it, and we need to accept that and do it.
Thank you for your candid answer.
Sorry, as I said, I don't know how candid to be, but...
Mayor McEwen, would you like to step in on this? I mean, you're a little bit away, but
density.
You use it.
Density.
Yeah.
We're working on it. It's a tough mindset to overcome. But you know, we're seeing it in regards to the parks as well. You know, our Bunsen Lake, it's full an hour after opening on Saturdays and Sundays now, and we're having a huge influx of people there. Transit is now busing people in. It's a jewel, and people are really starting to capture it. It's a big drain on our community, and we're going to have to talk to Hydro about how to help manage this and that. But there's, I think it's close to 400 parking spots that are full within an hour on the weekends. It's simply incredible. So they shut the park down. People park throughout the community, and then I was wondering where they were taking all these big heavy coolers and that. And they're not walking that 2 miles. No, they're hopping on the bus, and the bus is taking them in. So there's some challenges as well as for our evacuation in case of fire and that. We have to meet with them, and hopefully we're going to be doing that in the next month. So.
All right, Greg. Well, one of the things I've just maybe to help you out on this is, you know, in order to get people to give up their single-family homes and accept more density in their neighborhood, you know, maybe they need to be convinced that it's a benefit. So how would you do that?
Thanks for helping me out.
Yeah, you ever like a green line question?
I think you have to have I think our communities are okay to have a complex discussion that talks about affordability for their kids or their grandkids, or affordability for people that are coming to fill the jobs that are being created. I think it's good to have those discussions. But one of the things that we did outside the Evergreen Line that helped out substantially in downtown Poco is we pre-zoned all of the land in downtown Poco. So a developer is almost risk-free to build density in downtown Poco, and we've seen a great benefit because of that. We give up a lot as cities, though. We give up the ability to negotiate off-site services. We give up the ability to negotiate other things when you do that. I think the provincial government needs to fix this old local government act that makes us go through these first and second reading, public hearing, and let's face it, a public hearing, to use Mike Forrest's quote, is a public speaking contest, and I'll add to it, only people that are going to say no come out to a public hearing. You know, the other 95% of the neighborhood, never mind the community, don't come out and say this is a good thing. So we got to change those things, and Mike and I are on a UBCM, Union of BC Municipalities, Affordable Housing Committee, that we're going to try to tackle that and suggest some solutions to the provincial government so that we can get there. The other thing I just want to pick up on Mike's comment, one of the things that the TransLink Mayor's Council did when we developed the 10-year vision for transit and transportation in this region, we entered into a new concept called partnership. So if TransLink is going to put in a major piece of infrastructure, the Broadway line, the Surrey L line, the line out to Langley, the partnership comes in two formats. One, if it's not OCP'd high density around stations, you have to do it before we're going to put a shovel in the ground. And two, if you're the Broadway corridor and you already have a lot of density along there, there might be a financial contribution that you need to make to the line. So we're going to try to do that beforehand to help local governments, whether it's them or the next local government, say this is where it's going because you got that asset.
Well, thank you. Now, our next question is very popular. It's not super specific, but what I would like to add to it, the question here is, what is the biggest project the 4 mayor cities are collaborating on at this time? And I would say that they've talked a lot about already the way they are collaborating. But one of the questions we kind of talked about earlier when we were coming up with this list is, if we're not going to have amalgamation, how can we do more to collaborate to solve some of the transportation, the economic problems, the infrastructure problems, those kinds of things, the things that people are concerned about? What can we do more as cities to collaborate? So I'd like to hear everybody answer that. Who wants to start?
Well, as the chair of the regional district, where we amalgamate sewage, water, garbage, air quality, regional parks, affordable housing, regional planning, and so on, we do amalgamation in this region. We do it better than anyone else in North America. That's factual. We can send you reports up the yin-yang that shows that you get better value for your sewage and water and other products than anywhere else in Canada and anywhere else in the US. So we do the amalgamation. We amalgamate our police force. Maybe we can do more of that around sort of overall integrated teams in the region. So we do a lot of amalgamation. The biggest project that we're working on here in the Tri-Cities is a $550 million sewage upgrade to Annacis Island Sewage Treatment Plant, where all your sewage goes to. I bet you if I asked everybody in this room, nobody would know that, right? But that's what we're doing at Metro Vancouver. You can stand up on a soapbox and say, we're going to do this, and we're doing it efficiently, and we're saving, and we're blah, blah, blah. And everybody goes, yeah, it's a pipe under the ground. I don't see it. I don't hear about it. Because it's not sexy stuff. It's just stuff that we do. So there is a lot of amalgamation that happens already.
Well, what about the part where, when you see letters to the editor and that kind of thing about people in Port Coquitlam upset about what people in Coquitlam are doing in terms of construction and building? I mean, those are the kinds of things that people want to see a little bit more collaboration with.
Well, we are collaborating. We might not be happy with the results that we have right now. That's why we sent a letter to Coquitlam. They responded back. We have a joint meeting October 18th. Well, we could do this, frankly, if you want, we could try to do this all enclosed so you don't get to see and participate in the discussion. But I think it's a better community discussion. I'm not pissed off at Richard or his council. I get what they're doing. I would like to see some changes. I'd like to see different things happen because of the impacts that are happening in Port Coquitlam and the future impacts that are happening in Port Coquitlam. That's why we document them. That's why the media gets to report on them. So we get to have community, complex, tough discussions. If we just pretend it's not happening or we point fingers and use social media to say they're bad, that's not good governance, it's not good relationship, and it's not good coordination.
Richard, would you like to add?
Well, yeah, exactly. The region has to get along. It hasn't always gotten along, though. Let's face it, this is really the first time, I think, in at least that I can think of, when all 4 councils, all 5 councils will get together for dinner, and the 3 cities will get together regularly. The 3 mayors and 3 CAOs get together monthly, because we want to try to work through some of the realities of having borders that don't make any sense. The borders of the Tri-Cities were chosen when 2 upstart
Mm.
communities, Port Coquitlam and Port Moody, decided to leave Coquitlam in 1913.
We've never looked back. We look up above the rest.
So what? It was above. Are you all? So I think we do. So we do have to work together. The reality is that when Port Coquitlam does something in the Dominion Triangle, it affects us. When we do something up in Burke Mountain, it affects them. When Anmore does something, we don't even know about it. Until the next dinner, and he tells us because he's really proud of the new stop sign. It's true. They saved for 3 years for that stop sign. but I think we really have to talk, and we have to talk about all the issues, and we do. That's the one thing I'm really proud of, is the reality that we get together as mayors, and we do, and as councils, and we try to work through the differences. We know that we're going to have impacts, and we know that when we respond to growth, and we're not causing growth, we're responding to it. The lands on Burke Mountain were designated for residential housing, you know, when I was a teenager. That was like 20 years ago. And so our reality is that we have to work together, and we have to understand each other's perspectives.
Well, maybe we can move on to another related question, which seems to be next and is fairly popular, and that is, with the projected growth in Burke Mountain and the access to transportation routes through Port Coquitlam, what can and will be done to reduce congestion?
I'm going to put an end to that whole development up there.
Yeah, we're going to build a bridge. We're going to build a bridge from Anmore to North Shore.
Yeah.
So as I say, the Burke Mountain was designated for residential 30 years ago. And what we're now doing, and it's actually in the urban, the regional growth strategy. The regional growth strategy, voted on and approved by every council in the Lower Mainland, includes the development of that last green field. After that, we're not doing any more of that going into forests or going onto agricultural land. We have to contain growth to the stuff within the urban containment boundary. Our challenges with transportation are the challenges that Greg spoke about earlier, is that transportation is one of those weird elements where sewage, we know that that's regional, and we pipe it through the city and then deliver it to the region takes it over and does sewage treatment and
yeah,
all that stuff. Transportation is partly TransLink, partly local government, and then the province makes all the big decisions in spite of the fact that TransLink and local government are in charge of transportation. And on Burke Mountain, we have Coast Meridian is now 4 lanes. David is a 4-lane road that was just built by Coquitlam a decade ago or so. And there are 2 more that are meant to come off the mountain, one at Lincoln and one at Fremont. And those are designed, and they were designed back when it was designated as residential. The challenge is the phasing of them, making sure they happen earlier rather than later. And and the Fremont is one thing that another one of those challenges where we're trying to work through the differences of the 2 communities. Our goal ultimately is to make certain that we don't have those kinds of transportation impacts on other communities.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, you know, obviously we have some challenges. You know, Coast Meridian had 1,800 cars a day on it in 2003, and now it's got over 15,000. Right? We spent $13 million widening Broadway. We spent $132 million on the Coast Meridian overpass. We spent over $10 million widening Coast Meridian. Only 13 years ago, Coast Meridian from Lougheed to up Burke was 2 lanes in Poco. Had gravel shoulders when I was first elected in 2002. Now it's a highway. Right? So there are impacts, and I think Coquitlam appreciates that there are impacts. We want to work with Coquitlam on how we look at other routes off of the mountain. Because, you know, for us, we're very passionate that the Fremont connector would be an excellent route off of Burke Mountain, so that we already, you know, we could give you stats on Cedar Drive that has a high impact of cars on it compared to 10 years ago. Oxford Street compared to 10 years ago. We need to find better routes off, and we need to work with Coquitlam on that. You know, Port Coquitlam took a position of where we think that route needs to be. It doesn't quite align with Coquitlam's, but we're going to talk through that, and hopefully we can come to a, yeah, it's 400 meters, 400 feet off. Hopefully Coquitlam comes to their senses and butts up to where Port Coquitlam is trying to help accommodate Coquitlam's traffic. To be straight up about it, right? We're building a rec center right now. We want to work with Coquitlam, and we do with Port Moody about how that works. We did a study last year talking about amalgamation of who uses what facilities and that sort of thing. And it kind of worked out as a wash. At the end of the day. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was kind of a wash at the end of the day, the different services. But, you know, we have a concern when there's, you know, going to be potentially over time, I don't know how many there are now, but 24,000 people or 25,000 people in the current Burke Mountain OCP, another 11,000 in the Northeast OCP. We want to ensure that those services are there. I want to work with Coquitlam to lobby the provincial government to build more schools up there, because when they don't, our schools in Port Coquitlam are overcrowded. And that's okay. We have lots of our school trustees here, and we have amalgamation of our school district, and it works quite well. But it's not good that just Coquitlam and Coquitlam school trustees are lobbying for new schools in Burke Mountain. We need to be there with them because it affects poor Coquitlam kids when the schools are overcrowded because the province isn't funding growth.
Well, thank you for that. I think we've been given the heads up that we need to wrap it up soon. So I want to give Mayor McEwen and Mayor Clay an opportunity to ask an interesting question that affects them. And that is about the Ioko lands. Represents a significant amount of property with a unique historical town site. What would you like to see the town site used for, preserved, relocated, what potential business activity, housing, that kind of thing? Mayor McEwen, would you like to start?
Sure. It's a fairly significant hunk of land in our community, and it's been on the books for quite some time. So it's pretty exciting. And over the recent years, there's been much activity brought forth, and we really haven't seen any proposals. But as a council, we look at it as really completing our community. So that's when we talk about livable communities, we need a diversity of housing down there that would maybe graduate as it comes into our community, as well as we need some retail. The big thing that we heard when we had some meetings from the latest group about the proposal before the road issue came up was about aging in place and having a town site similar to that of like a Fort Langley and making it a walkable community. There's a lot of challenges with that site in regards to the road access, and really that's where it's kind of just being hung up now. But from Anmore's perspective, we would like to see a diversity of housing as well as even some retail component to it or some light industrial, which would help us with jobs in place.
Okay, and Mayor Clay, and maybe you could also address a little bit on the traffic and transportation.
Well, and that's the fundamental. And I think these are the, Greg and Richard talked about Lincoln and Fremont, and this is sort of our Lincoln and Fremont, I guess. We have different goals and different aspirations. This is on the outskirts of our community. It's not served by transit. It's not served by good roadways. There's no good way for us to get in and out of there. But as John says, that it's actually bringing Anmore down the hill, more towards civilization or whatever we're going to call ourselves. But there's not a good answer for us. What type of business would I like to see out there? Well, every time you look at it, you're like, well, it has to be somebody who doesn't dump a lot of traffic on the road, and so they can't have a lot of employees. They can't be moving freight. They can't. It's like, okay, so we could have a really unsuccessful ice cream stand out there, and everybody would be happy. I personally, I really thought on this one. This kind of the sale and stuff came a little bit earlier than most of us expected. I had said the last time I ran, when people said, what about Ioko? I said, I don't think we're going to see that for 10 or 20 years. And then along comes somebody buying the land. And I think they're ahead of their time for us in Port Moody. I think, somehow we need to get around what is transit doing in our community, where are we growing, where are we putting our density, and then how do we deal with a tiny pocket on the outskirts of the city. And remembering, this is, for us right now, this is 80-odd acres of land. The other 150 or so is in Anmore. But there's 600 acres of Ioko land out there, and there's 1,200 acres of regional park in Belcarra Regional Park out there. So this is a massive area that, joking or not, there might be a bridge one day that goes off to the North Shore. There might be servicing out there. There might be all kinds of things that change. So it's crucially important that this chunk isn't done on a short-sighted, let's slap up 200 condo units and call it a day. So it's not as simple as people are making it out to be. Obviously, this new owner has discovered that. Because we haven't planned for it, I'm more than happy to let them continue their process of dealing with the community and saying, what's your vision? Because that's what we were going to do eventually. So we'll let them go do that. We'll get their answers. And then we'll all sit down together as a community and a landowner and say, what can we possibly do that meets these aspirations? But I think, again, realizing that the aspirations in Anmore and Port Moody are very different on those parts of town. And we don't have fire protection out there, and Anmore would be having to ramp up to probably a career department if they had that kind of growth. So there's so many pieces of this puzzle. It's a great question, but it's a long way from getting an answer. And the nice thing is we're working together as the two communities, and we're moving it forward. So.
Okay, thanks. Well, some of those were tough questions. I hope you got some answers. And that concludes the mayor's question and answer portion.
And we'll do that question.
Thank you.
And thank you again to tonight's sponsors, BBQ, Earl's Port Coquitlam, appetizers, Rocco's Deli, beverage, Everybody needs a drink, and it looks like not just Yellow Dog. We've had some last-minute beer brought over from Parkside Brewery, Moody Ales, and Andrew Peller Wines. Dessert, the Clever Cupcakes. Photography, Butter Studios. Media, the Tri-City News. Signs, Fast Signs. Decor, Coquitlam Florist. And insurance, Martin Insurance. So, and again, thank you to the City of Port Moody. Yes, thank you. Thank you to the City of Port Moody for Inlet Theatre and for hosting us tonight.
This community program would not be possible without the financial support of our corporate sponsors and community members. Tri-Cities Community Television would like to especially thank the cities of Port Moody, Coquitlam, and Port Coquitlam for their belief and support of community television. If you wish to be part of our volunteer team, become a sponsor, or make a financial contribution to support community programming, please feel free to contact us at the following location.